Welcome back to Naptime Sports Talk Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to our latest episode. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to Naptime Sports Talk Podcast. On this episode, I'm going to be flying solo again, and I'm going to be wrapping up our regular season and postseason for the 24-25 NFL football season. Unfortunately, we fell short in our playoff game versus the Los Angeles Rams. Lost our game 27-9 to officially end our season and the great season we had going 14-3. I thought in the game that we did not start hot at all. We came out pretty flat. The Rams went right down the field, scored. I think the first pass of the game was like Puka Nacua there, middle of the field for 27 yards. Stafford just perfect ball down the middle and got the ball rolling for them. So unfortunately, we were not able to kind of get rolling there on the defense side of the ball. We definitely didn't get rolling on the offense side of the ball. And, Darnold struggled again in this game, showed us his true colors and looked like the Darnold we have come to know before the season. And a lot of people thought the Darnold we would see this season. So, hats off to him, though. He still had a great season. Unfortunately, the last two games he folded for us, and we are now going home. So, I also thought the offensive line imploded, especially on the interior of the offensive line the past two games. The Rams exploited their O-line, and especially in the middle there, they had some really nice blitzes too off on the corner blitzes, especially the one I think that was the fumble that Jared Verse ended up picking up and going all the way back was corner blitz that Darnold did not sense. He just got smacked and unfortunately lost the ball. But yeah, we lost. We got sacked for a total of 9 times. That's just not going to get it done either. And some of those were due to Darnold holding onto the ball for so long and being pretty indecisive with what he was going to do. I thought maybe he was sped up in his process a little too much and was hesitating, not hitting open guys. So, or even running the ball in some of those cases, he could just take off and run for a little bit, which we saw before. So, I don't know if the stage was too big for him, or if I truly believe that the Detroit Lions laid a good blueprint last week, how to get him flustered, and he was very flustered under the blitz. So this past game, he had a quarterback rating of 13.6, which is very poor. And like I said before, he was greatly affected by the pressure. You saw this with his accuracy, throwing behind receivers, overthrowing guys, and also, on that out route there to Addison, he kind of threw it inward versus outward, and it was easily picked off. I know his hand was hit too there, which did not help. But unfortunately, Darnold didn't show up when it mattered in the last two games. I thought KOC could have helped him a little bit to get the quick pass game going. But even when he did that, Darnold kind of seemed to just hold the ball too long and take sacks. So, yeah, unfortunately, this is the Darnold we've come to know, and he came out the last two games. So we'll see what happens in this offseason with him, and I'll talk about that a little bit coming up in the episode. Moving on to our defense. Our defense was also had a rocky start right away. Matt Stafford hit a beautiful threw a beautiful pass right down the middle of Puka Nacua for 27 yards. And in my head at the time, I was like, oh boy, here we go. And, a few plays later, they drove down the field and ended up scoring and capping it off with a 7-point lead right off the get-go. So right from the start, we were kind of had our backs against the wall there. You had to give it to the Rams. You could tell that they were playing more for just a playoff win. They're playing for a city that has experienced tremendous loss and tragedy. So they were prepared, they were ready, and they're playing for something bigger than just a football game. And you could clearly see that during that game too. So hats off to them. I think that they will, they're playing really good football right now, but I think the Eagles are going to be a really tough team to beat in this playoff. And right now I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that the Commanders can find a way to beat the Lions, but I'm expecting the Lions to win. I'm expecting the Eagles to win the next round. And, I think that Eagles-Lions match would be a really fun game to watch in the NFC Championship. Both very physical teams, and I'm excited for that possibility. So going back to the Vikings end of the season here. Fortunately, we had a really nice season, 14-3, and then in the playoff, obviously 0-1. 2 losses from Detroit, 2 losses from the Rams. Both losses happened back-to-back times. And in the 4 losses, you can say that KOC was outcoached. I still love KOC and think he's still deserving of the head coach of the year, especially what he was able to do with Darnold. But he definitely has to do a little more growing and learning in himself. He's a young coach still, and I'm excited for the potential and the possibilities of our franchise and our team moving forward. And, another big thing of KOC, too, we have to remember is he is up for a new contract. I would expect that would be getting done here soonish. I would imagine within weeks, you would hope, especially now that the regular season's over. He's the guy moving forward. We roll with him. He's built a good culture in Minnesota. I think people will desire and want to play for him, especially coming up in the big free agency. In free agency coming up, we'll see hopefully guys that want to come play for KOC and be a Minnesota Viking, especially with the cap space they will have. I'll kind of talk about that a little later too in this episode. But yeah, overall, at the end of the day, it is disappointing the way it ended. At the beginning of the year, if you've been listening to this podcast, I had us going 9-8, missing the playoffs, so they blew my expectations out of the water big time. But yeah, I'm excited to see what we do moving forward this offseason, which kind of leads me into my next segment of the episode. So moving forward, I think we can answer the question now of if Sam Darnold gets re-signed by us. For a big deal, I'm going to say no, he's not going to be re-signed by us. I think we'll move forward with our plan and have J.J. McCarthy take over the keys in year 2, in kind of his rookie year, since he did not get a rookie season since when the injury happened and took place. But now, does Sam Darnold come back in a backup role? Potentially, but I think he'll have the chance probably to start somewhere else. I don't know if he'll still get the big money, as I think he hurt himself the last couple performances. But I think teams will look at the tape. He put on good tape throughout the whole season. I have a feeling that he's going to get at least a chance to compete somewhere in next offseason for a starting quarterback position. So we'll see what happens. Am I leaving the door closed that he will not be back? No. But if I signing him for a massive contract, absolutely not. I think we roll JJ, we stick with our plan. And by JJ, I mean JJ McCarthy. We stick with him, we roll the plan, and we just keep trying to build this team in free agency and with the draft capital that we have coming up, which is not a lot. So moving into the offseason, positions of needs, I think the team, I believe we need to build our trenches, especially on the interior of the offense line and the defense line. We also need help at the cornerback position. All 3 starters this year, Murphy, Gilmore, and Griffin, are all due to be free agents. So we'll see what happens in the cornerback room. We should have Mekhi Blackman coming back next year too, which would be helpful. He missed the season due to injury. I think we also need to address the running back situation. Does Aaron Jones come back on a cheap deal? Maybe. But Aaron Jones could not yet, again, stay healthy and down the field for a majority of the season, constantly being pulled out of games and not finishing full games. So will he come back? Maybe. But I think moving forward, we need to pair a more finesse runner with a bruiser Bauer back who can punch the ball in close to the goal line, as we were not able to do in big, meaningful moments of games, especially the Detroit game. Can't remember how many red zone opportunities we had off the top of my head, but I know for sure at least 3 or 4 that we were not able to punch it in. So we need to find a bruising back that, can match up with a finesse runner. I like what we have out of Cam Akers. I think he's still showing good burst, and I think we just need another running back to kind of help and be more of a power back in our system. And lastly, that leads me to the position, or the safety position. Is this Harrison Smith's last year of NFL football? If so, I'm going to be bummed. If so, Harrison Smith, thank you. I know you'll not listen to this podcast, but Thank you for everything you've done for the Minnesota Vikings organization. You have been a joy to watch over the years as you come from the Notre Dame Fighting Irish all the way to the Minnesota Vikings. You are going to be Ring of Honor guy in our franchise, and I'm hoping that you come back for one more season, one more go of it. But if not, thank you, and thank you for all the memories that you have given us. So yeah, at this point of the episode, stop, send me a text if you got my phone number. Send me a message on Twitter, send me a message on, or I should say, send me a message on X, send me a message on Instagram. If that's how you follow, let me know. Do you think Harrison Smith is done? I would like to hear your opinions too on this one. And lastly, in the safety position, Cam Bynum's also a pending free agent. I thought Cam had a strong year. I would like to see Cam come back. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, start at the trenches. I'm a full believer of building there first. Build that interior of the offensive line. Build the interior of the defensive line. We have the players on the edge for defense with Van Ginkel, Turner, and Grenard. So I think we're pretty set there. But our interior of the D-line needs to get better. I think we could do a little better at the D-end positions too. And when I say D-end positions, I'm not meaning the outside linebackers that Grenard, Van Ginkel, and Turner are in a 3-4 scheme. So, for example, Jonathan Bullard would be a D-end in the 3-4 scheme. So yeah, I think we need to get a little better on those positions too, and get maybe a big guy up the middle. I thought Harrison Phillips did have a strong year for us, but he's also limited into what he is capable of doing. So build the trenches, and let's spend some of this money this offseason. Be interesting to see what happens. So just moving on to my next segment, I'm just going to go over some pending free agents that are set to be free agents from the Minnesota Vikings. And I'll just kind of tell you if I think that, give you a little quick prediction here if the Vikes are going to have these guys return or if these guys are going to move on and play it elsewhere in the 2025-2026 NFL football season. So, right on the list right away, Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold's going to get an opportunity to potentially start somewhere else. Does he come back to be the backup to J.J. McCarthy? I'm going to say no. I think Sam Darnold moves on to a different team, and I think, we need to move on at this point as well. Cam Robinson, who came in and played left tackle the majority of the year with Christian Darrisaw out, I think Cam Robinson is probably going to end up leaving the Vikes and try to make some kind of, it'll probably get a starting role somewhere else. Could we bring him back for a backup? That would be nice, but I don't think that's possibly going to happen. Harrison Smith, is he going to be retiring? I think that's a big question. We'll have to see. So I'm hoping that Harrison Smith can come back one more season and give it one more go for us. And we can also give him maybe like a 1-year deal to come back. That would be really, really great. Next guy on my list is Byron Murphy Jr., cornerback. Byron Murphy's Pro Bowl corner this year. I think that he played tremendous all season, and I would like to have Byron Murphy come back on this team. Stephon Gilmore, cornerback, came in for this year. I thought he played pretty well for his age. Is he going to come back? Maybe. Is he also going to retire? Potentially. So I think that we'll see what happens, and if we sign him to a 1-year deal to come back to the team. Aaron Jones, another guy on the list. I don't know what's going to happen to Aaron Jones. It'd be nice to have Aaron Jones back, maybe on a cheap deal, but we'll see what happens. Shaq Griffin, another starter on the defense cornerback position. He's another guy that could potentially be gone from this defense next season. Jerry Tillery, another guy who came in for a 1-year deal, played pretty well this season. I thought Jerry Tillery did. Another guy, we'll see if he comes back. Dalton Reisner, Offensive guard, we'll see if Reisner is going to be coming back for us. If we can get him back in a backup role, that'd be nice. Going back to Tillery and Griffin too. If I think these guys come, you have them come back the money for the money. The money has to be there. The money has to be good. Or I don't think we need to give them all the money in the world to come back for us. So I think there'll be other potential defensive linemen and cornerbacks in this free agency class that we can go that are better players. Jonathan Bullard, another guy that was starting on the defense end or on the defensive line. Johnny Munt, tight end. Brandon Powell, wide receiver. Nick Mullins, backup quarterback. David Quessenberry, offensive tackle. Dan Feeney, offensive guard. Jihad Ward, edge rusher. Trent Sherfield, wide receiver. Fabian Moreau, cornerback. Camus Gruger Hill, linebacker, came in and played some good football, and he had to. Also, how the heck did he miss that block punt? I believe that was him. I have no idea how he missed that, but it was so close. Patrick Jones, unfortunately, had that injury at the end of the season. We'll see if he's back. Cam Akers, I'd like to have him come back. I think he's got some good bursts left in the tank, and he's a good kind of spell running back. Daniel Jones, this is an interesting piece here now. So the Vikings had to activate Daniel Jones to the 53-man roster in order to potentially get compensation. But compensation's based on the arrivals and the departures that you have. So there's like an algorithm. And if we lose more players in the money, so if we lose more players and our arrivals are less than the amount that we lost, right, money-wise, then we could potentially get compensation picks in the 2026 NFL draft. But this offseason goes to the next draft. So this current draft is going back to 2020, the 2024-2025 football offseason, moving into this year. So we potentially could get compensation this year. I'm not sure what the math is looking like with the departures of Cousins, Hunter, and us bringing in Grenard and Van Ginkel and Cashman, Gilmore, many other guys in our list. So we'll see if those cancel out or if we get any kind of compensation return this year. I'm hoping so, since our draft picks are pretty sparse this year and we don't have a lot of capital. Going back to this list here. So yeah, Daniel Jones. I would like to see Daniel Jones signed on a cheap deal to come back to learn under KOC, be the backup quarterback to JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy can move around in the pocket. He can scramble with his legs. Also, Daniel Jones has a great running ability too. I think that would make sense to have a backup that has those same capabilities as your starter. And Daniel Jones could put himself in a situation where he's learning under KOC. Potentially Josh McCown, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. The rumors coming out with that one. So yeah, I think Daniel Jones, let's re-sign him. Let's bring him back to be our backup to JJ McCarthy next year. Let me know your thought on that. Brett Ripon, probably gone. I think we just brought him in, but we'll see. We'll see if he comes back. Cam Bynum. This is a tough one for me because, I think that you can go out and add safeties in free agency pretty easily. But I like Cam Bynum. I think he's a good locker room guy, good glue guy to have in the locker room. Kind of sets the culture, has a good attitude, keeps it fun, keeps it real with the guys. So yeah, I'd like to have Cam Bynum back in the safety room if possible. We'll see what happens. Theo Jackson's another guy on this list. Safety, I'd like to have him come back, especially if Harrison Smith calls it a career. We also have to remember that a lot of these guys are probably coming here to play for B-Flow too in that defensive scheme. So it depends on who our defense coordinator is. If B-Flow leaves and we have a new D coordinator that comes in with a different type of scheme, we're going to want guys to kind of fit that scheme. We saw the same thing with the Donna Shell defense, his real name Donatel, but we always call him Donna Shell because he always ran that shell defense, zero blitz. We got the polar opposite of Flores. we saw a lot of guys that we drafted in that draft class that did not work out because they didn't fit his scheme. So we'll see. This is a good position right now where we could add to our defense based on our coordinator scheme. So am I going to rule those guys out? No, but I also think it's a good, we should wait and see who our defense coordinator is going to go forward and if B-Flow is going to be hired as a head coach for a potential team here in the NFL. So I'll talk about that a little bit here as well. Ryan Wright is up for a new contract. Our punter, Jalen Redmond, defense line, he came in there, made some meaningful games. Played some meaningful snaps and played pretty well. I'd like to see Jalen Redmond come back for us. I thought he did pretty well when he had to. Then Henry Byard, offensive guard. So we have a pretty laundry list of guys that are potentially going to be leaving this offseason. Hey, send me 5 guys you want to have come back on that list. But we'll also be talking about here in the future about potential free agent pickups that we could maybe go after. And definitely my favorite time of the year, the NFL draft. We'll definitely be talking about that in later episodes, especially this offseason. So moving on to the draft. So the draft will be held again in Green Bay this year, and it's going to be April 24th. I want to say it is April 24th or April 25th. First round will be that Thursday, as always. But currently, the Vikings will be picking 24th in the first round. And unfortunately, as a draft lover as myself, we only have 3 picks as of now. A first-round pick and 2 fifth-round picks. So we could be getting a comp pick from the NFL based on the departures of rivals from last year, as I discussed. But I think a big piece of this, too, is, this offseason will have roughly $72 million of cap space to spend moving into the offseason to use in free agency and to use in the draft based on our draft slots and what those guys will be making. So we have a lot of money to add to this team. We have money to have those guys or have players that we discussed as pending free agents to come back. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. So I'm excited for this offseason. I'm excited for the potential and possibilities of this team moving forward. And we'll see what happens. So, but here's another prediction I have for the draft before we move on to the last segment here. And we're picking 24th currently. I would not be shocked come draft night or before that. I would think it would happen more on draft night. But if Kwesi trades back in the back end of the first round or in the maybe early second round to try to acquire some more draft capital to have in this next draft. So this next draft is a pretty defense heavy draft, I would say. It's also, there's a lot of good gems in the offensive side of the ball, a really, really strong running back class coming. And it's a good time to need a running back. So there's some guys I have my eyes on that I'd like to see in purple next year, and we'll see what happens. But moving on to last segment here before we wrap this up, there was a report today that the New York Jets potentially will be poaching a few guys from our coaching staff as well as the front office. A report broke today that there's a possibility that the Jets could be hiring Brian Flores as their next head coach, and then Ryan Grigson, who is in our front office right now, as a general manager. And then there's a possibility that's a package deal to have Josh McCown leave to be the offense coordinator for Brian Flores' new team, the Jets. So we'll see what happens if B-Flow leaves, if the Jets give him another chance to be a head coach in the NFL. I think we'll know here in the coming weeks, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, keep your head up, Vikes fans. We have some exciting times coming, hopefully, and hopefully one of these years we'll be happy at the end of the year. But let's just keep our heads high and make sure you tune into the podcast to listen to the off-season talk. I'm really excited about this. We're going to have some guests come on with me this offseason, going to have some different mock drafts, dive into different prospects, and just see the possibilities of what we could potentially do and what could potentially happen. So, all right. Well, thank you for listening to this point. Till next time, Skol Vikes.
Thank you for listening to our episode. Be sure to give us a follow on Instagram and X at Naptime Sports Talk Podcast for content related to the pod. Thank you for the support.